Labor Secretary Eugene Scalia joins us now on those stimulus initiatives. Thank you, Secretary, for joining us. So Republicans unveiled a $1 trillion plan. It includes reducing the unemployment supplement from $600 weekly to $200 weekly until September, when state benefits combined with other stimulus will go down to about 70% of previous wages. With everything kind of down to the wire here, do you think that this is likely to get passed? What American people want to know, essentially, is just, will they be seeing more money in the future? And how much will it be?
Leslie, good to be with you. And yes, the American people will be seeing more aid, substantial additional aid from the federal government during this difficult time. As you said, the $600 a week benefit, which was passed by Congress in March, that expired. Congress in March agreed that it should end at the end of July, and so that's happening now. But the president, the Senate Republicans have stepped forward and said, let's continue a federal supplement on unemployment insurance, which is very unusual. Remember, unemployment insurance is a state system. It's funded by contributions by employers, but the federal government has stepped in. During the Great Recession, the weekly federal supplement was $25 a week. Now the president, the Republicans, and the Senate are saying, let's make it $200 a week until we can transition to what you've described, which is this 70% wage replacement rate, so that people on unemployment would get 70% of their working wage. And just a couple quick points on that. This concept of wage replacement is kind of fundamental to an unemployment insurance system. And worker advocates have been saying for some time that we should have wage replacement at about 60 to 66% of the wages people would have while working. But the president, the Senate Republicans have come in and said, let's make it 70% during this challenging time. Now, that is less than the $600 a week payment. But I was pleased to see this morning that House Majority Leader Steny Hoyer acknowledged that there was, as he put it, validity to the point that $600 a week is paying nearly 70% of people on unemployment more than they got while working. And again, so when you look at a wage replacement approach, $600 a week, it was a substantial payment as we were closing our economy in March, but it's not a sustainable approach toward an unemployment insurance system.
In terms of the stability of the economy, I mean, we've seen a spike in coronavirus cases over the last few weeks. Is it the right time to really be decreasing benefits amid kind of the backdrop of this virus, which seems, at least in terms of the potential for additional shutdowns in the future, nowhere a certainty?
It's a good question. And let me emphasize, first of all, that we've made great progress from where we were in March in a couple of ways. We understand the virus better, much more how it's transmitted, how to treat it, how to contain it. And we've economically been able to progress much farther than people were projecting back then. As you know, in May and June together, we added 7.5 million jobs. We are farther along in a strong recovery than had been projected. But it's not time to pull away entirely from federal aid. And that's why, even though Congress had previously agreed the $600 a week should expire, the president is stepping forward and saying, let's continue with something very unusual with this $200 a week payment. It's so unusual to have the federal government joining and funding unemployment insurance. And as you know, there's more. There are another round of economic impact payments, $1,200 per taxpayer. That's additional substantial support, with another $500 for dependents, support for the Paycheck Protection Program, another $190 billion there, and then another $1.3 billion in worker training and to help dislocated workers. So this is another really very substantial package to help Americans during a period that remains difficult, even though I think we've certainly come a long way from March.
Schumer's on the tape now saying that the plan has tax breaks, he says, for 3 martini lunches, but no money for feeding kids. I know the deductions are just a piece of this, but what is the hope behind deductions from meals and entertainment? Is the expectation that people like ourselves are going to get our corporate cards out again?
I believe there is a provision that would provide tax deductibility for meals. And, of course, that's targeted at the restaurant sector. That is a sector that we know has been hit harder than others by the virus. And I've certainly heard from restaurant owners who think that's one way that they can weather this period. So that kind of tax credit is about sustaining those businesses, sustaining their workers. There are other tax credits for hiring workers who were laid off as a result of the pandemic to incentivize rehiring of workers. And I don't think we should apologize for a moment for tax incentives meant to restore our strength of our businesses, restore jobs. What we want is the economy that President Trump had built until the virus came. And that was an economy built in part on tax relief, which incentivized job growth and a record economy. And I think that provisions like the one you described, that's what they're aiming for, to sustain businesses and support the workers at those companies.
Yeah, a record economy, certainly with the unemployment rate where it was, not necessarily GDP, Mr. Secretary. I have a question, though, about the wage replacement to the 70% you were describing from the $200 benefit. There was a memo out yesterday from the National Association of State Workforce Agencies that basically said, given the state of many states' computer systems, it could take anywhere from 8 weeks to at least 20 weeks to get to a point where they could actually process that once they get guidance from you. Is that a concern for the Department of Labor?
We can make this work. As you're describing, it's true. The way that this will function under the Senate bill is that for 2 months, it'll be a $200 a week payment, and then states will transition at the end of 2 months to a 70% wage replacement approach. We surveyed the states. The great majority indicated they could get this done within 8 weeks. There is a process by which they can apply to the Labor Department for a waiver if they're not able to achieve it. But I'll tell you, Senator Schumer and Senator Wyden of Oregon put forward their own proposal a little while ago that required more changes by states. It would have fluctuated up and down, potentially on a monthly basis, depending on the unemployment rate. There are a number of problems with their proposal, but that actually would have involved states making changes more frequently than our approach. So we did look at it. We think this can be done. And by the way, another important part of this legislation is more than $1 billion more for states to administer their unemployment insurance systems. We know they've had problems. We've tried to help them. And then $2 billion to build a better system over time so that, among other things, we can reduce fraud on the system, which has been a major concern. Maryland reported a couple of weeks ago, in part as a result of an investigation with us at the Labor Department, that about 20% of the claims that they had appeared suspect and that they believed they'd been defrauded by $500 million. And so introducing more integrity into this unemployment system is important, too. And that's another thing this legislation will do.
All right.